Okay, so have you ever been sitting there minding your own business and suddenly, like, bam, someone's chewing? It's like a symphony of annoyance.
It's true, some sounds can really get under our skin, can't they?
It's like, dude, we're not in a nature documentary here. You're allowed to chew with your mouth closed.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. Those little things, those pet peeves that can drive us up the wall. But are they worth all the mental energy?
We asked you guys to sound off,
Hmm.
and wow, did you ever deliver? You sent in so many examples from the classics we all know and love.
Oh, absolutely.
To some I'd never even considered. But I gotta say, the loud chewing complaints, they were off the charts.
It's definitely a popular one.
Some of the descriptions, seriously, like they're auditioning for a Foley artist gig. Every crunch, every slurp.
Well, it's interesting because some people might genuinely be unaware of how loud they're being, right?
You think so?
While others, they're just super sensitive to those sounds. It's like their senses are on high alert.
It's true. Maybe it's like a super taster thing. Like some people taste more intensely. Maybe some people just hear those sounds way louder.
That's a great analogy. And then there's the whole social aspect to consider.
Like, are they trying to send us a message? Or is it just a total lack of self-awareness?
Maybe a little of both. There's actually some research out there suggesting that mindful eating, really focusing on the taste, the texture of your food, it can actually lead to quieter eating habits.
No way. So you're telling me there's hope for the loud chewers of the world?
Maybe. But then again, there's always the possibility it's subconscious, right? Maybe it's a bid for attention or, just a habit they're not even aware of.
So basically, it could be nature, it could be nurture, it could be a cry for help. Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic.
Just a tad. But hey, it keeps things interesting.
Speaking of interesting and maybe a bit annoying, let's talk about another auditory assault we hear a lot about. The dreaded loud typist.
Ah, yes. The click-clack symphony of the modern workplace.
Seriously, some of the descriptions from you listeners, I swear, one person compared it to a herd of elephants tap dancing on a keyboard.
A little dramatic, perhaps.
Maybe just a tad. But it does make you wonder, is this a real epidemic, or are we all just a little too sensitive to office noise these days?
Well, think about it, right? We've gone from those little cubicles, those tiny islands of sort of quiet.
Where you can at least pretend you couldn't hear your coworker clipping their nails.
Exactly, to these wide open office spaces, which, hey, can be great for collaboration and all.
Sure, when you're not being driven mad by the constant clatter.
True, it can be a sensory overload for some. And let's be real, some people are just naturally more sensitive to sounds than others.
So what's the solution? White noise machines for everyone. Mandatory typing lessons.
Or maybe, just maybe, a little more awareness and consideration for our colleagues' eardrums.
It's true, a little empathy goes a long way, right?
Mm.
Speaking of empathy, or maybe the lack thereof,
Yeah.
let's talk about those digital demons. People who text in all cap PS.
Oh my, yes, the virtual equivalent of shouting into the void.
Right. Like, I get it if you're super excited or something.
Or if it's, an urgent situation.
But some of the examples you guys sent in, it was like, dude, I just told you I made toast. Calm down.
The intensity is real. And it does make you wonder, is it because we're missing those nonverbal cues in digital communication?
Good point.
Like, are they overcompensating with the caps because they can't convey tone of voice through text?
It's like they're trying to make up for the lack of facial expressions and hand gestures with a whole lot of uppercase letters.
Exactly. And it can be exhausting, right?
Tell me about it. One listener even said they felt obligated to match the energy, like replying in all caps even when the topic was totally mundane.
It speaks to the complexities of online communication, doesn't it? Like, is the person on the other end genuinely yelling, or are they just trying to be enthusiastic?
It's true. It's so easy to misinterpret tone in text messages.
And that's how misunderstandings happen, my friend.
Oh, for sure. Misunderstandings, arguments, maybe even the end of friendships as we know it.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
You're right, you're right. Okay, so from potentially misconstrued text messages to straight up dangerous driving habits, let's talk about another pet peeve that really gets people going. Turn signals, or rather the lack thereof.
Ah, yes, the elusive turn signal. A source of endless frustration for drivers everywhere.
It's like they think their car is psychic, or, that we have some magical ability to read their minds.
It's as if the concept of indicating your intentions is just a foreign language to some people.
Right. And then there's the people who wait until after they've already started changing lanes to flip on that signal.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for the warning, I guess.
The oops, did you need to know that 5 seconds ago? Signal. Classic.
It's almost insulting, right? Like, They think it's a courtesy notification instead of, a crucial safety measure.
It's a blatant disregard for the well-being of others on the road.
And not to mention illegal.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes you wonder, what's going on in their heads? Are they just completely oblivious? Or is there some deeper psychological explanation, like a need for control or something?
It's a fascinating question, and one that probably has a different answer for every driver out there.
It's true. We're all a mystery in our own
Sure.
way. Okay, so we've covered loud chewers, clicky typists, all caps texters, and the eternally frustrating no turn signal drivers.
Quite the lineup of annoyances so far.
I know, right? But here's one that I have to admit I kind of get. Overly enthusiastic replies. Like, has the world always been this chipper, or am I just getting old and grumpy?
Now, that's an interesting one. And, there might be something to that generational difference.
Right, like back in my day.
We didn't have emojis for every emotion under the sun. We had to actually, use our words.
Exactly. But seriously, some of these replies, it's like they're on a constant sugar high. One listener described it as being bombarded with exclamation points and OMG amazing responses to the most mundane things.
It can be a bit much, can't it? Especially when you're just trying to have a normal conversation.
Like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you? OMG. So amazing to hear from you. You're the best. It's like, whoa there, buddy. Let's dial it back a notch.
It's like the volume knob is stuck on 11.
Right. And it's exhausting. But then again, maybe it's just their way of being positive and spreading good vibes.
That's a fair point.
Okay, you've convinced me. Maybe I need to lighten up a little.
A little more OMG amazing in your life.
Maybe not that far. But, embrace the enthusiasm a little more. Speaking of things that could use a little more embracing, how about those never-ending meetings that could have totally been an email?
Oh, tell me about it. That's a pet peeve I think we can all relate to. You walk into a meeting and you're like, this could have been an email chain. Why am I here?
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm all for teamwork and collaboration.
That's...
But some of these meetings, they're just a black hole for productivity. One listener actually had a brilliant suggestion, though instead of a meeting, everyone just has a mandatory 2-minute dance party.
I love that.
Right. Talk about a mood booster.
And, there's actual scientific merit to incorporating movement and humor into our workdays.
Okay, so maybe not a full-on dance party every time.
Although, I wouldn't rule it out.
But seriously, finding ways to inject a little fun, a little energy into those otherwise tedious meetings.
It can make all the difference.
Absolutely. But you know what else I find fascinating about this whole pet peeve thing? It's like, sometimes what bugs us most about other people,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a reflection of ourselves.
Ooh, that's deep. Tell me more.
Like those exaggerated reactions we have, the intensity of our annoyance. It's like, what's really at the root of that, right?
It's almost like we're holding up a mirror to our own insecurities, our own little quirks.
Exactly. It's not about excusing bad behavior, of course,
Of course not.
but maybe understanding where our buttons are and why they get pushed so easily.
So instead of immediately going into frustration mode,
Yeah.
we take a breath, we approach the situation with a little more curiosity.
Like, I wonder why this person's constant pen clicking is driving me up the wall today. What's going on with me?
Exactly. It's a subtle shift in perspective, but it can make a world of difference.
Because, let's be real, we've all got our things right. Those little habits, those quirks that might drive other people crazy.
Absolutely. Nobody's perfect. We're all just out here doing our best.
And sometimes our best involves chewing a little too loudly or tapping our feet to a beat only we can hear.
Or forgetting to use our turn signals.
Hey, now, let's not get carried away.
Just kidding. But you're right. It's all about extending a little grace, both to others and to ourselves.
Grace, understanding, and maybe a healthy dose of humor. Because honestly, some of the pet peeves you guys sent in, I was laughing out loud. Like the people who only use their turn signals after they've already changed lanes. It's like, thanks for the heads up, I guess.
The delayed turn signal. It's a classic for a reason.
It's like they think it's a courtesy notification, not, a basic safety requirement.
But, you've hit on something really important sometimes. Finding the humor in these situations, even if it's just an internal chuckle, it's the best way to cope.
Choose laughter over frustration.
Always.
Easier said than done sometimes, but I'm all for it. Especially when it comes to those soul-sucking meetings that could have been an email. Remember that dance party solution we were talking
Oh,
about?
I'm never going to let that one go.
We should start a movement.
Meeting-free Mondays?
Replaced with mandatory dance breaks. I like the way you think. But speaking of things I like, I'm dying to know any pet peeves you'd like to confess to. We've all got them.
Let me think. Oh, I've got one. You know those people who walk really slowly in crowded hallways?
Oh, yeah.
Especially when they walk side by side, creating a human wall of slowness. It drives me
The
crazy.
slow walkers.
Oh.
Oh, you are preaching to the choir.
Mm.
We had so many listeners write in about that one.
It's like they're completely oblivious to the flow of foot traffic.
Oblivious, in a hurry, lost in their own world. Who knows?
Right. But even as I'm saying this, I realize it's a perfect example of what we've been talking about. Like, instead of letting the frustration get to me,
Yeah.
I can choose to see it as an opportunity for patience.
Hmm.
Take a deep breath, maybe do a little internal eye roll if I have to.
Gotta love a good internal eye roll.
Exactly. It's all about finding those coping mechanisms.
It's true. We're all works in progress, trying to navigate this crazy thing called life, pet peeves and all. And hey, maybe by acknowledging our own little pet peeves, we can all try to be a little less, peeving to the people around us, right?
Wouldn't that be something? A world with a little less road rage and a little more patience for those clickety-clack typists in our lives.
And maybe even a few more impromptu dance parties.
Now you're talking my language.
But on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into this wonderful, weird world of pet peeves.
We've explored the annoyances, the humor, even the psychology behind what makes us tick when someone's chewing is a little too loud or their text messages are a little too enthusiastic.
It's been a wild ride. But before we go, we wanted to leave you with something to ponder.
Have you ever had a pet peeve that you actually truly overcame?
Like, did it take a conscious effort, a change in perspective, or did that annoyance just kind of fade away over time?
We'd love to hear about it. Share your story with us.
You might just inspire someone else to find a little more peace in their day-to-day life.
Because sometimes the most insightful journeys start with a simple question, even one about something as seemingly insignificant as a pet peeve.
So until next time, try to embrace those little quirks, find the humor in the everyday, and remember we're all just out here doing our best.
Pet peeves and all.
And on that note, we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.